Hey, listen, I picked the Jeep up a little while ago, right? I thought I was going to be able to make it back to the shop, but I came up a little short.
Just a little.
That's all right, though. You know what I mean? It was overheating a little bit, but what are you going to do? So here I am, right? I almost made it.
Almost. Now, how long has this thing been sitting?
I've been here, I don't know, 20 minutes, could be an hour.
Okay.
I kind of lost track.
Well, let's see. It's cooled down enough. I think we can go ahead and take the radiator cap off. And one thing you want to do before you try and take off the radiator cap is go ahead and check the hose feeding it. Now this actually, it actually has been pretty cooled down. Yeah. It's not pressurized or anything, so you know when we pop the cap, it's not going to come spraying out in our faces.
Yeah,
so
it's not going to give us a shower.
Yeah, that's a good thing because that can get pretty nasty pretty quick.
Hey, now here's another thing I did, which is always a good idea. When you're driving down the road, sweeping the gauges, just look at them, glance at them every couple of minutes. You know, it's just a good habit to get into. And I noticed it was getting hot. You could tell everything was going bad, you know, so I turned that heater on full blast, and what that does is it gets that air going through the heater core. That acts like another little radiator. A lot of times you can make it all the way back, you know. In the old 96 Ranger, imagine this, I've had some overheating issues in that too. So, you know, I've made it all the way back to the house just by turning that heater on, but it didn't work today. So we've got to go to plan B or C or D.
Well, if you're caught in a pinch, you could always pour water in, but if you can get your hands on some antifreeze, you got a buddy like me, it's a good thing to do is get some because it's got a higher boiling point, but a bottle of water inside the vehicle you're drinking out of might help as well.
I got a buddy like Bruno with a Corvette just on standby somehow.
Hey, that's how I roll. Now, another thing too is, you know, obviously we've got a problem which is causing this, the thing to overheat.
I did see a little white smoke.
Okay, one thing you want to check is you pull the dipstick. You know, all you do is you look at it and see if it's coffeeed up a little bit. If you got some water, some contamination inside the oil, usually means is a sign that you might have a problem with the head gasket. And you know, it's an easy thing to check while we're here.
All right, listen, we're close. I'm freezing. I don't know how you do this, so let's get this inside and take a look.
I got a top down. What do you mean freezing?
Just put the strap up. Let's pull it in. All right.
You know, this is supposed to be my day off.
One of the major issues you can have with overheating is a blown head gasket, among other things. But we think that was one of the side effects of this whole fun thing, right? Because we saw white smoke coming out of the tailpipe a little bit earlier. So that's a telltale sign. But before we go ripping everything apart, we want to do a little test first, just to maybe cut down on some work. So we've got our combustion leak tester. So what I'll do is get a little fluid in here right now, and I can run this test.
Hey, while you're setting that up, I'll go ahead and get ready to fire it.
All right.
You give the word when you're ready.
So what we're going to do is test for the presence of CO2 in the coolant. Now, ordinarily, that would not be in there, but if the gasket has been compromised or breached, then that carbon dioxide would actually get into the coolant system, and this is the test to know, because this blue fluid right down here, if there is CO2 in here, when we start pumping it up, go ahead and start it up, it'll turn yellow. So we'll check it out. Now, it's already warm, and so now we'll give it a couple squeezes. And we're pulling air in to see if it's going to change colors. All right, dude, we're good. Now, Bruno, take a look at this.
Oh, I detect a little CO2.
Yeah, you know it. It's like a sample. All right, so now we know what's going on.
Now, what you can do if you've got a V-Series engine is you can actually eliminate one side or the other, or at least try to, by taking away fuel and spark from either side and running the same test. See, with this inline 6, it doesn't matter because you're pulling the head off and you got one head gasket. But if you've got two of them, you can save yourself a lot of work and a lot of time by trying to figure out which one has got the leak.
So when the test fluid turns yellow, that means Bruno has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's always me.
Here you go, partner. I'll be right back. I won't leave you hanging.
Well, if you didn't realize it before, I hope you do now how big of a project this is pulling the cylinder head on this Jeep. I mean, it's not brain surgery, but it's pretty labor intensive. There's a lot of stuff you got to get out of the way, a lot of wiring looms and a lot of parts and pieces before you can get this thing off. And if you do it yourself, you can do it, but you need to give yourself a little bit of a cheat sheet when it comes to putting it back together.
You know, one of the advantages to modern technology is pretty much everybody has a digital camera these days, so you can come in here and snap a picture or two of it, because you may get a phone call, or you may go out with the boys and get some chicken wings or something like that. You may not come back to this right away, right? It could be a week. And then you're looking at this, some of the wiring, some of the other things, and you're looking at things going, man, where in the world did that go, right? And you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a mess. Well, the good thing is you can go back to your digital pictures and take a look at it. I'm about the only guy on the planet that doesn't have a digital camera in his phone. But you know, that's another story. I'll get caught up. But you take the digital pictures, cardboard, and Ziploc bags, and you can keep track of everything. Look, we want those push rods and we want the rocker arms all going back in the same spot. So we've got them lined up. We know the order. We got these things all separated by Ziploc bags, and we're in pretty good shape. right?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to look at this gasket right now and try and see where the blow-by was happening, and unfortunately, you can't really tell sometimes. I mean, it could be right about here. You can see where they're not going to get a good seal, but it's kind of hard to tell. You know, in a race car, it's a dead giveaway because you'll see a torching of the head gasket.
Right.
Not so much in this Jeep because it hasn't been tortured that hard. But what we're going to do is go ahead and take this cylinder head down to a machine shop, have it checked out, and make sure that it didn't warp or anything. A good thing is the fact that it's a steel head, so it's less likely to, but you don't want to get in a situation, you put it all back together, go to fire it up and find out you've got a problem, because I'm not getting back in here again, that's for sure.
No, and that's a great point. You know, you talk about the amount of work that's involved in this. We need to get to the root of the problem and find out what's causing the overheating. You know, so we don't just patch this up and have it happen again.
Hey, welcome back to TruckU. Now the cylinder head's out at the machine shop getting worked on, but we need to find the core of the problem, what caused us to lose that head gasket. So the guy who brought the Jeep in told us that he thought there might be an issue with the fan. He picked it up at a junkyard and was always questioning how well it was working. Well, one of the problems is the fact that he's got it hooked to a toggle switch, because these Jeep guys, they like to do that. This way they can cut it off when they're running through the water and stuff. But if you think about it, driving down the road, how easy would that be to forget to turn the fan on? But that's a whole nother story. Initially, we're going to go ahead and check the switch because it can be an easy fix. It's simple to do, and we've got the right tools to make sure that at least it's wired in correctly, and that could eliminate one of our problems. So, hey, Matt, you watch your fingers for a second, okay?
I'm out of the way.
All right, I'm going to keep the fan on. Here we go. All right, it kicked on. Oh, did you do anything?
Why you got to blame me all the time? I had nothing to do with that.
All right, we've got a problem here because the fan switch is still on and it kicked off on its own, so we've got something we need to diagnose, and I think Matt's got the right tool to do it right now.
All right, so we need to do a little detective work, right? A little diagnostic, if you will. And one tool that's going to make our life a lot easier right now is this. It's the Power Probe 3. It's really easy to use. We like to say that Grandma could use this tool, you know. No offense, Grandma, but I'm telling you, this is nice. And it's so many tools in one. You hook it up to the positive and the negative. It's got a nice 20-foot lead, so you can go all over the vehicle. And look at this. The first thing you notice is it's a flashlight for one, so that's going to come in handy when we're down there snooping around, right? So we've got the voltmeter right there. Shows us the voltage. Red, positive, right there. Easy to see. Then we go over here. We got the ground. Green, negative. Again, easy to see. It's a continuity tester, and another thing I like about this is the fact that this lead is powerable. So let's say you've got a voltage drop between here and a component that requires the voltage to run it, right? And it's not running because it's not getting the voltage. Well, you can power it up right here by hitting the switch. Another cool thing is it's got a built-in safety right there, a little circuit breaker on the inside. So here we go, right? We've got a good ground going on. Accidentally, I'm down there being careless. Boom, I send power to it, right? Well, all that does is it pops the circuit breaker right there and you push that button. So you're not going to hurt any components and you're not going to hurt the tool. This thing has a lot going on. This is good. So now we can get in here and take a look at this relay, right? 12-2 at the battery, relay's coming in, power coming into the relay is good, right?
Okay.
So here's the line coming in from the switch. So what we can do with this powerable lead is go ahead and send power to it, and that'll simulate the switch coming on, and we'll see what happens with the relay.
There we go. Oh. I think we're starting to have an issue here, and we know the switch is doing the same thing that the relay is doing, so hold on a second. What? Don't turn it on yet. There's some connector down and through here where he's got some crimp going on.
Tell me when you want some power.
Yeah.
Fingers clear?
Flip it. Yeah, there's something going on right here with the crimp in the wire. So we're good there. Okay. I think this is starting to see what's happening down over here. Why don't we get the fan out? We can check the continuity of this wiring going to it. But it seems like this simple connection right here might be causing us all this grief.
You know what I like about the Power Probe 3, dude? We already know in seconds that the issue is right there. We've isolated it.
Yeah, it's, you know, it could have saved all this. All right, with this radiator and fan out, we can set it up here and do a little testing.
Now here is another cool tool that we got from the guys at Power Probe, and this is the Screaming Continuity Tester and Voltage Detector. And this is a little nice self-powered device, man. I like this.
Yeah, it's great. It's self-powered. In fact, that you just touch these two connectors together, and it'll turn it on and you hit any one of the buttons. You know, it's got the light on the front of it, which is great as well. And it's the screaming one, which means that if you're at a shop and you know you've got a lot of loud background noise, well, I'll tell you what's happening here.
You're going to hear that.
Yeah, over the guy doing the jackhammer or the loud air compressor in the background, you can test for continuity and you can actually hear what's going on. So this, what we're doing right now is actually testing with it. We're going to test this fan to see what's going on here. And wait, let me get the leads.
Got it there?
Hold on.
Like a surgeon.
Nice. You like that?
Nicely done. Hey, this is a great compliment to the Power Probe 3 that we were using, especially in what we were doing over there on the relay, because we could tell that we had power going into the relay, and this actually told us that we had power going out. So we were using these two things together, and it really helped us isolate the problem.
Now this kit, you've also get an extra 20 foot of lead, and what this is really cool is you got a wire piercing probe, which comes in really handy. Hey, welcome back to TruckU. Now before we took the cylinder head to the machine shop, we took off the water neck, and what we found inside is that we thankfully had a motor rad thermostat. The way you can tell is because in a situation when you have the vehicle overheat, it always locks in the open position, and that's a fail-safe because what it does, it allows the coolant to flow continuously through the engine. That's a good thing because with your typical conventional thermostat, a lot of times they can lock in the closed position, which will restrict almost all of your flow of coolant, which can cause serious engine damage. So spend a few bucks, get yourself a new thermostat and radiator cap. Now speaking of radiators, this one looks like it's from the original vehicle from 1993 when it rolled off the showroom floor. You can even see the Chrysler badging right here. The bad thing with that is these things are only good for about 12 years. And if you take a quick glimpse inside, it's pretty well corroded. So what we're going to do is take this thing to a radiator specialist and see if he can rot it out.
The rotting out process is more common in the larger radiators that you find in semi-truck and dump trucks because they're so expensive to replace. But we wanted to show you how the rotting process works. It starts by performing a leak test. As you see, the bubbles are leaking around the tank, and sometimes you can repair this by putting on a new seal. After the leak test, we need to take off these mounting brackets that hold the tank on so we can get access to the copper tabs. The tech carefully peels back the copper tabs so he can lift off the plastic tank. The open radiator reveals a problem. Now, by the looks of it, this radiator is only flowing at about 20%. And at 50%, just by turning on your AC system, you can have an overheating issue. So I think we found where the overheating problem began. Rotting out the radiator is a nice alternative because you can save a couple of bucks. But you know, we looked into it and this new one actually didn't cost too much more. And we said, you know what, let's spend a couple bucks and just put a new one in there for the heck of it, right? Plus, we got this new fan from Flexolite. So that's a good new combination. Got it all sitting in there where it's going to go. And I think this is going to solve our overheating issue.
Yeah, we've got another piece of the puzzle that's really going to help solve it, and that is this controller right here for the thermostat. Now, this is going to be our temperature probe, so we'll put it inside the radiator. What's nice about this is you can program the temperature. So let's say you bring this thing up to 180 degrees. You want it to come on at that point. You turn the knob till it kicks on, and that's your setting point, and you can adjust it wherever you want. Now, for the off-road lovers that want to be able to turn off their fan going when they're in water situations, we're going to put an override switch where you can turn it off. So this way you're covered either way. You can't forget to turn it off going down the highway, and you got the option of turning it off when you're doing some off-roading or going underwater.
I think it's a nice touch for this thing, for sure.
Now, there's kind of a method to the madness when you put the cylinder head back in. You want to be careful how you do it. First of all, you don't want to damage that new gasket, nor do you want to damage the bottom of the head. So what we're going to do, first of all, is with our fasteners, you want to put a little bit of this assembly lubricant on it. This way you'll get the right torque spec when you try and torque them down. So, Matt, here's one of these. I'll keep passing them over to you.
All right.
The other thing is you want to get the right torque spec for this particular engine. This one is calling for a final torque of 110 pounds on these head bolts. The thing is, you don't want to start at 110 pounds. You want to work your way up. So what they're calling for is you start at 22 pounds, then go at 45, and then set your torque wrench for the final torque spec at 110. Now, the way you do it is you want to be careful, and you go and work your way from the center out. This way, you're going to get a nice even clamp load on the cylinder head. You won't damage the gasket, and you'll get great combustion. Everything will be combined here. Believe it or not, if you get too crazy and you start on one end, especially with like an aluminum head, you can actually twist the head. So what we'll do is we'll start right in the center. We'll go around this way, then go back around here, and then keep working our way around the head until it's evenly balanced out across. We'll do that 22, 45, and 110. At that point, the cylinder head should be in place.
Yeah, that maybe be locked on nice and tight.